So good afternoon once again, everyone. I hope you are ready to start this deep conversation about technology. We all been heard about this hype, all these jargons, all this digital transformation and cloud-first approaches. But what is beyond that? Like, what is the real impact that this has on business? Is there anything on the DevOps side that really changes how people think, how people work, how the processes are thought? So within that, we are going to tackle not only the processes, not only the technology, but understand the impact that this has in every single one. We have here multiple experts in different fields. I would love to introduce them accordingly, but the time is really running, and I've been seeing that people are eager to get into the discussion. So what I would say is, for each one of them, like, ask them to introduce themselves, like in 1 or 2 minutes, say something that they are doing at the moment, something that could be valuable to us, and probably a fun fact for us to at least get to know themselves, at least for us to get to know them a bit better. So I will start with João, that is a senior architect for MongoDB.
Thank you very much. So, what am I doing currently? Yeah, as Fabricio was mentioning, I'm a senior solution architect, and up to some time, about a year ago, I was working for PayPal. So I see here some put your hands up, who were the PayPal crew. Oh, I see them, and here as well. And yeah, most recently, I was challenged. So in 2014, I tried for the first time MongoDB, and I said like, okay, what the hell? I'm used to relational. But actually back now in 2024, they told me like, hey man, we need someone that speaks Portuguese, Spanish, English and whatnot, and a bit of Polish as well, because I was living in Poland, so. And they told me, yeah, we need you to open the Portuguese market, because the product is amazing, but we need people to be aware of it. And this is what I'm doing currently, talking with, let's say, the largest enterprise here in Portugal, and making sure or listening to their problems, and then trying to fix them using the technology, open source, of course, and then also having the platform Atlas. Fun fact, well, I have a cat dog. I live in Madrid, by the way, and I came all the way here from the invitation of Fabricio. My cat thinks he's a dog, so I walk him around Madrid. And so this is a one. If you see a guy walking a cat in Madrid, might be me. And now, guys, I also know it's a large day. It's rainy as hell. So pick your poison, be water, juice, beer. And every time we are going to talk about buzzwords, every time someone talks about AI, you need to take a sip. So do it with moderation, please.
Great challenge. Thank you, João. Right now we have André Gonçalves that is playing at home, so he's from xgeeks and he's an engineering manager. Please.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here in this amazing rainy day. For those of you that like rain, well, this is the most perfect day on the year. So, a short introduction about myself. So, engineering manager at xgeeks, leading our expertise on platform engineering. So, pretty much working on startups and large enterprise at the same time, trying to bring them some developer efficiency on infrastructure, on delivery, developer delivery, runtime, cost optimization, and previous background. So I grew a couple of businesses, previous one for 8 years in the Netherlands, from 0 clients to 300, during the time where actually DevOps was growing from since 2012, when Twitter came with this talk, like Velocity 09, and said, okay, we deploy 10 times a day. So since then, and grew the businesses with sustainability. So during that time, all startups were just, being funded, and we grew with profitability. That's kind of a fun fact, because that was fun to do, but just to add a fun fact. So I'm 34 years old, but the first time I had fish in my life was last year. Yeah, so I was apparently allergic to fish until 34 years old, but then apparently not. So now I'm enjoying the full Portuguese seafood. So
how is that possible? Living in Portugal?
Yeah, I was wondering the same right here.
yeah.
So thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Micah, that is the head of engineering for Rely.io.
That's right. Everyone, it's good to be here with you all tonight. Micah, head of engineering for Rely.io. We're a platform engineering intelligence company based in Lisbon. I've been here in Lisbon for about almost a year, so I'm still fairly new, still figuring it out. Previously, I was at PayPal, more specifically Venmo, for the past decade. I know more about the US payment system and architecture than I care to admit. And if you want to geek out on it later, happy to do so. But yeah, I've been in the technology space for almost 20 years now. I'm much older than I look, hopefully. And fun fact about me, I'm a big NBA fan. So Golden State Warriors, I'm from the Bay Area originally. I've been to over 100 games at this point, and seen their championship wins. So I'm a big fan, and if you want to chat about the Warriors, happy to do so as well.
Thank you so much, Micah. As you can see, the panel discussion is the cloud hype in business, and unpacking the real impact of DevOps in operations and business strategy. So coming from the big picture, for you, how has cloud technology impacted not only the operational side, but the strategy side of the business?
So yeah, about that part, and you mentioned both of the pillars that I'll say. So first of all, I'll say from the business sides, it's accelerated business like crazy. So back in the days, we were very infrastructure heavy. Companies were developing or putting infrastructure like crazy. And the cloud transitioning is bringing the flexibility like we've never seen before. Nowadays, we can see multiple companies like Telegram, Snapchat or whatnot, that with a team of engineers 30, so the same as he's managing, being able to create multi-billion-dollar companies, which is something that, first of all, is incredible, how 30 highly talented people can make something like that. And I would say one of the main drivers was actually the cloud infrastructure, being so easily accessible, and that changed all of this. So they didn't need to hire a lot of I don't want to fire anyone, but let's say DBAs, infrastructure guys, but automate some of the tasks. That's, to be honest, installing a virtual machine is not rocket science. I believe everyone here might know how to do it. So make it faster, automate it, and this also brings to the other side, the business side, being able to generate at the same rate or even higher amounts of revenue like they were never seen before. We are seeing every year passing by, and if you check which company just reached the unicorn status the fastest, it's ever changing. And I bet some money, maybe not all my money, that majority of them were cloud-based, like Netflix, Snapchat, Facebook. I think the last one was Wiz and whatnot. So I think it's really shifting and bringing all this to a new reality. And let's see if this is working. AI.
You should drink that.
Thank you, João. And how about you, André? Is there anything on this cloud transformation that you would like to address?
Yeah, so let me pick up on a different side from yours. So you've touched on the amazing side of cloud, and that has been obviously amazing, and that changed businesses' decision making, open new streams for businesses, which is what actually matters. Take Adobe, they created Creative Cloud, and then suddenly in 7 years they grew 91% in revenue. So that has been amazing as well. But on the flip side of things, that brought a lot of hype and a lot of people and businesses trying to get and hop on that train, and then suddenly we do cloud and we use cloud just for the sake of it. So it's just a means to an end, and then that might not be the right mean to an end, and that has happened with a lot of companies, which brought a lot of interesting higher costs, lack of visibility into what's happening, and at the same time a lot of investment that did not bring return on investment, so that did not bring any returns actually. So that I think has been amazing, at the same time brought a lot of challenges.
Micah, you have been one of the most experienced here and probably know cloud a bit better than most of us because you started with the cloud, for us to say. And what have you seen like on this transformation that has impacted the most for you?
I would say on the flip side of acceleration, you also have more competition. So you have a lower barrier to entry. Anyone can spin up a VM, somewhere in the world and launch an app. You have things like Netlify, where you can spin up a static site within 30 seconds. So that means you're constantly having to iterate, you're constantly having to adapt your business and your strategy. I would also say there's much higher complexity. So the skills that an individual engineer must be higher. And you also constantly have to be learning and adapting yourself as well. And I think, one result that I've seen, the positive for most of the world, is that the quality of products is much, much better. Things like personalization, which was a cool value add maybe 10 years ago, is now a table stakes feature. When you use an app, you expect it to remember what you did last time, and you expect the behavior to suit that, your next time around. And I think it'll only get far more complex and better for consumers as we go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now for you, André, regarding the DevOps, how do you think that whenever DevOps is used for efficiency and also for agility, what kind of role does it play on the cloud world?
All right, so I'll be controversy a little bit. Like you've asked me if we use DevOps. Let me ask something. Does any of you use DevOps? Raise your hands. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right, so we got to the right thing. So yeah.
You adapt to it. You adopt yourself to it.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't use DevOps, all right? So it's not something you do. It's that kind of mindset, and it actually became. I wouldn't even call it a mindset, but an umbrella of different practices that you use every day to actually build code, release it, test it, to automate it, to whatever. So just to make your means to an end again. So you want your product, you want it delivered, you want it maintained, and a lot of products have been built, a lot of tools, and that of course help to then automate and then to provision, then connected with the cloud. That worked well. So that was a good match. At the same time, I believe you brought, I think you mentioned that just before, a lot of hassle to then the people that are using it, because then we get confused with what kind of tools we actually want to use and what we should be using. Are we using it too much? And suddenly, but if we look back to what I was talking about before, so the 14 years ago at Velocity 09, it hasn't changed that much. Like the tools have changed, the workflows have not changed. But answering your question, yeah, DevOps has enhanced obviously the use of cloud.
Thank you, André. Thank you for demystifying the words. You will be our grammar for today. If I have any kind of questions, I know who to ask. For you, Micah, whenever you are reshaping a strategy, a business strategy, what DevOps brings, or what kind of alignment does DevOps brings to this strategic alignment?
I would say DevOps is a means to an outcome, not necessarily the outcome itself. And what I mean by that is anytime you're developing a technical strategy, it has to be in conjunction with the business strategy. You can't say I'm going to migrate everything from GCP to AWS, since I know where I am tonight. You can't do that in a vacuum. The investment, the cost, the time, the bandwidth is enormous. And so you have to be able to do it in collaboration with your stakeholders, with your partners. And so while I would say DevOps practices are, I'm opinionated, but the best practices for a lot of engineering organizations to excel, It's not, if you are the best DevOps engineering organization in the world, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are the most successful business in the world. And if the business runs out of money, we're all unemployed. And so, if you have a fully automated, GitOps methodology that's deploying code, 1,000 times a day, if you have no money in the bank, it's pointless. So I think DevOps, is a methodology. It is, a means to succeed as a business.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I might would like to add. Sure. No, here, and Michael was mentioning it right, like the best DevOps team, or having the best DevOps, infrastructure might not bring you like the success, but I would say it allows you to, first of all, building a POC, it's very fast, I think everyone can do it. I would say then, iterate on that and being fast to the market is another one, and that's what DevOps allows you, and it's like Michael Jordan. He says like, man, how did you manage to, and you're an NBA fan, how did you manage to score so much? It's like, because I failed, and I failed very fast. I failed more like hoops than all of you together. So I think that's the thing that DevOps allow them to iterate, deploy, fail fast. Many of the companies will then like go into cost run through, because even I'm a power user, and sometimes, and I'm an atheist, but I pray to God when I put my credit card on a cloud provider, because I'll not be surprised. The other day, arrived me 100 euros on GCP, and I'm like, where did it came from? And I really cannot justify. So the cost overrun is a thing. But yeah, it allows you to fail fast, deliver, try to, before I remember being in agile teams, and agile meant a sprint of 3 weeks, deploying after 3 weeks, and like most recently, I'm like seeing deploys every like 3 hours, which for me is insane. And you can take metrics, analytics, and like a bit more into observability and AI, and you're able to like fail fast, get to see the mistakes, and change your course much faster than like after a 3-week sprint. And well, let's not mention waterfall, because then it will be another hassle. But like after 1 year, no one cares about your code, about your products. So like, what the hell did you develop? We changed the world. So I'll say, yeah, not having the best one, or having the best one, is not a guarantee to success, but I'll say it will help massively, and then you'll have to have money for it. But well, that's another topic.
Thank you for that. It will be for André right now. You talked about being fast, and I'm pretty sure that everybody here likes to be fast on the things that we are doing. And there's also the word like FOMO, fear of missing out. So whenever a company wants to be a cloud-first strategy or have this kind of approach, André, what do you think that are the biggest things that these kind of companies should know before adopting this kind of mindset?
First, you should take a step back. Do you want to be cloud first just because you want to be cloud first? You first need to think about your use case. So what are you using your compute for, your database for? What's the kind of load you're gonna have? How predictable it is? How unpredictable it's gonna be? How much is it going to grow? And then you might be a use case for cloud first. But then you might be asking me as well. Actually, I read this question back to you. Like, do you want to talk cloud first or cloud native?
You can go for cloud first.
Cloud first. Okay. Then your first. So get your stakeholders aligned on where you want to go. Then if it matches with cloud, obviously go for a provider that actually your team already knows something about. Like, don't hire whatever just because you want to choose a certain cloud, and then you have to replace your team. So go for the easiest path, and then obviously try to find the best compute, the best database, the best set of services that the cloud will bring you, and that it's already in there. So. And use it for your business. I'm just trying to make it, a little bit simpler than it might be. So, and I think it is actually simply starts from the beginning of pursuing the right goal.
Yeah. João or Micah, do you have any key steps that you would add of these cloud-first strategies that companies should?
I think to add on to that, any technology you adopt, and if you're operating at scale, is an investment. So I'm a big believer in doing proof of concepts and experimenting early on before having to commit to new technology or new data store. When I first joined Venmo, my first day there, the emergency was, we're hosting self-hosted MySQL and we're running out of disk space. We're already on the largest instance of, that AWS will give us at the time. If we don't figure something out, we're gonna basically have to shut down the site. And at the time they were moving maybe 20 billion USD a year. It's not too big yet. And in addition to MySQL, they also had a MongoDB instance. They also had Elasticsearch. They had every data store under the sun. And you can't support that at scale. It's too difficult. The surface area is too large. The bugs that you encounter every day is too much. The security posture and surface area is also enormous. So I agree. Like, step back, think about your strategy, experiment in low-cost ways that are low risk. Learn as much as you can, because once you're starting to run something at scale, you now have to hire people to support that and continue to support that scale as well.
Thank you for that. If we're talking about established companies, probably they are going to adopt a new way of working. And for you, João, whenever you are reshaping the business, what would be the main strategies in order to have a smooth transition for this kind of cloud approach? Or
Sure. So here I'll say one of the things that I think is really important and I think really affected the first, I'll say, wave to the clouds. Back, I'll say 10 years ago, everyone saw cloud, they saw the advantages, but they went without thinking. And they were like, okay, no, we have unoptimized things. We have like SQL queries running on 32 cores, 255 gigabytes of RAM. And they're like, let's put this on cloud and it's going to be much faster. And they never thought about optimizing, automating, and think about it before. Then I'll make a bit of a challenge, thinking nowadays, what would be a business that is not, let's say, cloud, if it's not cloud specific, or to be in the cloud, because everything now is global. I don't know, our mobile phones, we need to be connected to everything, everywhere. We want it instant and rapid. So it will be a good, interesting challenge to see where to put the servers and why to care of the infrastructure and the network and whatnot. But yeah, I'll say we'll start with the basics. Before making this transition, the company needs to first automate at their max possible. Use their Jenkins, try to optimize everything with Terraform, make infrastructure as a code, make it smooth and modular, and ideally work with tools that are cloud agnostic, that you eventually could run in multiple clouds that are not creating eventually a vendor lock-in and will need you to start playing Legos with it, that you need to start, oh yeah, this is cloud agnostic, but then if you start putting pieces, you're a bit tied to it. So yeah, automate, plan before going, optimize, and that will be, I believe, a first initial step, and then it will also need to go through the business. On the executive level, you need to have a leader that has, first of all, vision, because if you are still in a company that's, maybe the leaders are a bit too on top of legacy, they're like, oh, relational from 1970s is the greatest, and we are going to keep modernizing our upper layer and bringing React on top of Oracle 8C, and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? So you need also a leadership that will be innovative, and doesn't matter the age, they just need to be open to that, and once that align, and they need to also break the silos. I'll say back in the days there's also this big shift left, but breaking the silos between DevOps, DevSecOps, development, testing, I think in some time they'll need to make it homogeneous and break the silos, not just, oh, I don't do this because this is your team or this is your responsibility. I think all of them will need to come together at some point, breaking those silos, and then let's not say that they need to be ready and follow all these steps to go, but they need to make it progressive and think about it as well to be sure that when they're clouds, I'm pretty sure that cloud will be, let's say, the future, because it's much easier for you to bring competitive advantage, because you have 30 people, you don't need to hire another 30 to make the infrastructure, and then your competitor is we can buy that. And then you're already buying into a VMware, VirtualBox, whatever you name it. So buying something for as most amazing product is, won't bring you the competitive advantage. It's how you build on top of that. I think this is a full process to improve and to make sure that they are cloud ready to go. And well, try small and then build on it.
André, João spoke about being cloud agnostic or trying to use those kind of tools. Is there any moment that you suggest for a company to think in just one cloud? What would be your suggestion for this kind of situation? When does it make sense and when does not make sense to go for?
To go cloud specific on just one cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go for if your use case and if there is a cloud provider that actually solves your use case really efficiently, like be it BigQuery, be whatever. So a service on a cloud provider that will solve your business or a part of your business much more efficiently, really easily to maintain, so that you don't have to bother too much about it. So that will be the moment of, okay, we'll go cloud specific.
Okay, thank you. Micah, regarding structure or operational challenges that we have, whenever you are picking a different cloud, how do you evaluate this kind of transition for one of these, or using this kind of approaches of DevOps or changing the way that the business is structured?
Coming from on-prem, or
Yeah.
are you saying like between cloud providers?
What kind of experience do you do the most, like, or have you done the most from these ones?
A couple different ones. I would say I've had a lot of experience moving observability platforms, which we haven't really discussed very much tonight. But anytime you have a 300 engineering, person engineering organization, and you're moving from Grafana to Datadog, for example, which is what we did. I kid you not, it literally took us a year until you got every team using it day to day, until every engineer understood the product and tools well enough that they could make real-time decisions on the job. So I would say, training is a huge aspect of it. Another thing that I consider when managing teams is, I call it like knowledge accumulation. So, say you have a 20-person engineering team and you're thinking about moving, to EKS, for example. That's a contrarian example. But you can't expect your whole engineering team to be an expert on day one. It's just impossible. You'll, slip your roadmap if you do. But if you look across your team, you probably have some engineers who are more inclined to learning new technologies, who are very interested, and may have past experience with it previously. And so I think you want to look to practices that will help elevate the group level ability, instead of thinking about it as, I'm a leader, I have a business problem, I need to hire my way out of it. That's not necessarily true. I think you can build a much more strong grassroots engineering culture about continuous learning and feedback loops. If you're doing things like, I'm going to send one of my engineers to a conference. They're going to do a book report basically on what they learned. They're going to give a presentation to the rest of the engineering organization. I have another engineer who's going to play with Sonnet 3.7 just launched. What are some new use cases that it solves that the previous version had challenges with? I'm going to have an engineer do, we call them snacking shares, but you can also do lunch and learns, to just give a rundown of what they learned and just try to disseminate knowledge for a group as quickly as you can and most efficiently as you can.
And Micah, if we wanted to have only the fluffy part, we will invite someone from sales to talk with us, but we invited engineers and people that have experience, not about the good, but also about the bad. So from your side, what would you say that are the hidden troubles that happens when you are trying to adopt this kind of culture, the DevOps culture within the organizations?
I saw this one in the notes and I already knew what I was going to say. I mean, the biggest thing for me is the complexity that you're increasing. And again, like if you're starting a new system or you're building a company, be very careful about the complexity and tools that you take on. For example, I've worked with an unnamed company who just had a handful of customers but already had like 6 different services. And if you have more services than engineers, that's a bad sign. If I have to open up 8 PRs to make one API change and see it actually saved to a data store, that's a bad sign. It's going to hurt your velocity. So I think the complexity that the ecosystem presents is something that you have to tread very carefully in. You have enough slack to go hang yourself, essentially. I think another slight variation of that is also the security surface area is also dangerous. I've seen companies who spin up a data store, didn't properly secure it, are hosting, has multiple terabytes worth of data on there, and then you find that it's actually exposed on the public internet, and like anyone could not access it, but they could try to brute force connect, establish a connection to it. And so the tools are double-edged. Like you have to understand what you're getting yourself into. You have to understand the complexity and the dangers. A former mentor once told me, there's no such thing as bad architecture. It was a purposely provocative statement, but his follow-up was, you have situationally appropriate architecture. And so you don't have to build the perfect system on day one, but you need to understand, you need to have considerations of what are my goals as a business, what direction do I see us going in strategy we're taking, and how do I build baby steps to get us in that angle without taking on too much risk on my way.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So, João, regarding cloud adoption, if you are using DevOps for that, usually what are the hidden mistakes or the pitfalls that you find or that you found in your way or in your journey that hinders the most companies?
Sure. So here with also with what Micah said is that nowadays we have so many tools, and if you join, you don't need much, but let's join 3 developers on a team, 3 engineers, they will come up with 10 different tools because they're like, no, Jenkins is the best, no, the Netherlands is the best. They'll start making tools like, no, we need to automate this, so let's build this on top of this, make a Lego architecture, which I call it like just put pieces on it, all with SaaS applications. Once again, you go with the security part of it. You don't know what's behind the scenes. It's like, might be something good, and then you're like, oops, my data was just leaked because someone attacked this. So I would say the overcomplication of tools is one of them. Using them way too much, trying to automate what sometimes doesn't need to be automated. Some people want to automate, code commenting because the developers are way too lazy. What the hell, are trying to develop or trying to automate. This might be a bit better because I don't know anyone that likes to do unit testing. So yeah, when they're like, we need to automate this as well, then okay, cool, use a tool, but do you really know how to automate or how to make unit testings? Not quite. So what kind of unit testings do you have there? You are trusting someone when you don't know how to make this. Like back to university when they were making like, why are you using we have the calculator, why do you need to use all the algebra and whatnot? I think people also need to know how to do it before using the tool. So that's also another thing, and another big mistake that I see, or the lack of knowledge. And yeah, not reading there is a bad word for that, but not reading the documentation. That's, I would say, one of the biggest issues having so many tools, and one of the big mistakes as well.
That's really, really interesting. For you, André, is there any other hidden pitfall or mistake that you see when people try to adopt that they didn't know and they find it throughout the way?
I think the biggest mistake, both Micah and João have told already a lot of mistakes, but I think the biggest mistake is to try to adopt it too much. So take on your responsibility too much of the whole DevOps tooling and do it everything yourself. So that's the biggest mistake, because you might end up with a team of 5 or a team of 6, 7, it doesn't matter, and they are all, instead of working on value-adding features, they are actually playing DevOps, let's say, and that's the biggest mistake because that's really costly. And if you really dig the numbers on how much engineers are spending on this that they shouldn't, if you extrapolate it to really large organizations, that's a huge loss in revenue. I could go dig the numbers. Actually, we are a fintech house, so I should have some for you. But we've calculated it on some big clients on the automotive industry, and we've seen teams of 30 engineers actually, let's say, have a negative cost to value of around $1 million, which is really measurable to the repetitive things they do and they shouldn't be doing, and that really punishes business. So, biggest mistake: don't do it too much.
Per engineer.
Yeah. No. For the whole team. No, per engineer, that would be, yeah.
In a competitive world, André, every single company, every single business wants to leverage this. So by adopting the cloud, by having the DevOps culture, how do you think that companies can still have the edge of using it?
They still have the edge.
They
What
want
do
to
you mean?
have the edge, so
Yeah.
sometimes they adopt this kind of cloud because of the edge. Like, what is specifically the edge that you think that companies are looking for?
Yeah, I think what they are looking for, number one, is time to market as fast as possible. Is time to deliver features. So it's the startup that's just got a Series A and it's going for a Series B, and they have a huge pressure from stakeholders and they want to deliver as many features as possible, and they go for these tools to try to speed it up. And that works well, or it doesn't. Sometimes it actually hinders the speed for a while, and then you really have to, and then if it speeds it up, then obviously then you pick up and then you go for the B and for the C, and then you're really hitting it the ground running. But yeah, I think that's the number one reason why, speed.
From the other panelists, is there any other reason that you find that companies try to... Anything, João? Yeah.
Sure. So another thing that typically they want to get edge on. So I'll say, yeah, time to market, I'll say is the most, or the first one that comes to mind. They need to have they really need to be fast. Once again, they need to fail fast as well. But there are also some other points that they need to touch to make sure that they have it. So not only align it with the business revenue, but for example, Micah was mentioning, they develop a lot, and the quality. I'll say another metric that would be very important is to fail as minimum as possible, like making sure that, and on code developed, that they have the minimum amount of bugs, which is something that everyone knows that per line of code there are 2 bugs coming. So trying to avoid this Fibonacci scale. And the other one will be the self-healing part, trying to make sure that they will use, let's say, the cloud natives and the AI part on the observability and then make the self-healing processes that could give them the edge to predict and not only learn with their mistakes, but learn with other people's mistakes and other solutions' mistakes.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Whenever we hear about machine learning or AI, we know that we are talking about impacting the future. And Micah, for you, what would you say that is the future of the business operations while you are using and you are on the AI era, and how this changes the way that we think about this adoption?
I would say one thing is not to feed into the hype too strong. It's very easy to go after every opportunity that you see. And so I think having some discipline and sticking to your business plan and your strategy is critical. That being said, I think there's a number of advancements or things that we're seeing in the industry today, and it's not necessarily Gen AI large language models directly, like chatbots. I feel like chatbots are probably the primary use case most people use it for, but we're starting to see more use case specific capabilities being developed. One that I really like is an IO. I don't know if you all have used this previously, but it's essentially PagerDuty, but you're fully operating it out of Slack. And if you've ever been on an incident and you're trying to keep track of information while firefighting, while debugging issues, while trying to page someone out, it's just very difficult to do. And so, one tool I've seen that I actually really like is you just have a bot that records everything that happens and automatically generates a timeline of events for the benefit of theory of improvement, for providing data to engineering organizations to understand here are the pitfalls, here are our gaps. We spent 30 minutes trying to find the right person to page. That tells us that we need to build a better service catalog so we know exactly who owns what. So I think there's more use case specific things that are coming out that no one would have really predicted or even knew that they needed. And it was just toil that we dealt with because we thought that was the job. But yeah, those are some things that I'm interested in seeing develop further.
And for you, André, whenever we are talking about AI and machine learning, we are talking about putting steroids or exponentiating everything. So if you are trying to make a process faster, if that process is not well oiled, it's not good process, what kind of challenges this can have for companies that are only going for AI and machine learning?
If the process is not oiled enough. I think if you look at I think your question is that probably most of us right now, or most of us, or most of the people are looking at AI as this miracle solution. So it'll actually bring benefits just because, and that actually doesn't seem to be the case. But it has an absolute amazing performance on understanding data and on analyzing it, so that you can use to analyze and actually understand how to oil the process and how we've used the process in the past and how it actually, when did it go well, when did it go wrong, and it might find patterns better than you and then actually help to oil the process.
Thank you for that. We already talked about processes, we have talked about technology, but we didn't talk about people. And it's really important to implement DevOps culture. So for you, João, what do you think that would be crucial in order to successfully implement the cloud adoption and also the DevOps culture? What people need to know or what people need to do in order to make it happen?
Sure. So here, bringing me to the previous point I was saying, is that one of the things is indeed breaking the barriers. Here within the development team, I'll say that, and I was a full stack developer for a long time, I was then a front end, I was then also putting my hands on the DevOps, but yeah, making sure that everything is pretty homogeneous and that you break the silos will be on the people part. Making sure that you surround yourself, and here I think it was Micah mentioning, making sure that you surround yourself with people that are eager to learn and that are not very stuck on old platforms, old technologies. Sometimes they are proven, but if you need to bring innovation, you might need to consider if the one that you're using, is it still the appropriate one, or going for the new one. So people that are brave enough to take the hit on, maybe not too brave, because then it will be called crazy. And on the people's perspective, leadership is also important, and then align everything or make sure that there is always a big, I'll say a big gap, or I still see very big gaps between development teams and business teams, where they say like, okay, no, the IT guys just speak zeros and ones and binary code, the salespeople only, they tell crap that you're like, your jaw just drops, and there needs to be an alignment, they need to converge into one single idea, and they need to be really aligned. And I think only with this alignment between business and the development team and engineering, they'll be able to bring something. Because if you bring the best code but it doesn't generate money, it will never be successful. So you need to make a balance between these both. Business sides bringing the money and very good engineering. And here it will be a trade-off to make sure that everything aligns and they're able to generate good codes or good solutions and also bring revenue to it.
Yeah, definitely. Someone said that what gets measured can get better. So talking about KPIs, about understanding if the culture is being adopted, if the DevOps is making sense of the processes. For you, Micah, what would you say that would be a good KPI or some good KPIs to understand if the culture is changing, if the processes are changing, if it has the impact that the business needs?
Yeah, one thing on what you just said, sales also likes ones and zeros, but they just want more zeros after the
Exactly.
one. So, we speak the same language. In terms of, can you say the question again, sorry?
Yeah. What gets measured can get better. So
KPIs. I mean, availability is probably one of the key KPIs, especially if you're in payments. So striving for 5 nines is more and more of the industry standard these days. So that was like the top KPI that we've had in engineering organizations. But I think you also have things like the DORA metrics. If you all have read Accelerate, if not, I highly recommend it. Very good book. Measuring your rate of change. How many times am I iterating on code per day or per week or whatever unit of measurement you want to use? What is my PR cycle time? Where are my gaps that are preventing me from having the right organizational inputs to reach the right business outcomes? I think there's a number of industry standard metrics at this point. I would say they're the golden metrics, but I haven't seen them employed in a lot of organizations I've been a part of. A quick plug, that's actually why I joined Rely.io. It's one of the things that we're trying to tease out is just trying to ingest information about your engineering organization and derive insights about where you can improve just based off of how fast are you deploying code, how many times you revert, what's like the chance for every PR that you pushed, what is the likelihood that you will have a revert coming soon after it, just based off of historical data.
Yeah, definitely. And for you, André, any kind of KPIs according to the large teams that you have as well led that you would say that are good to have?
I think Mika's given an amazing answer actually on the technical KPIs, and that was so complete. But I want to give a different perspective from the organizational level, because you've mentioned those are like initiatives to bring DevOps and DevOps adoption. So actually, if you are a leader trying to bring that to your team, you actually need to measure different KPIs. So those, of course, but you have to measure the efficiency of the initiative itself. So are the engineers adopting it? Are they using it? Are they changing? Are they happy with it? Are you have to do a couple of surveys from your people team, or even from the managers of those engineers, and try to understand, okay, are you happy with the changes? Or otherwise it won't work. It doesn't matter if you bring all this tooling and you have metrics to measure the efficiency of the development teams when they are not using the tooling that you're providing them, that they are refusing to do it. So, and that brings me to the question of, okay, we should look at this team and provide them like proper users of a product, which is the DevOps.
Thank you for that perspective. So, in order to close, I would like to ask João, right now, where do we stand? All these changes, all the DevOps things, or all the business transformation, do you think like we are still scratching the surface about the things that are about to happen? What is your view and your perspective on that?
Sure. So I'll say here, the human condition, we are always ever changing and expecting for a better future. So I honestly, I'm a dreamer, and well, as Steve Jobs was saying, dreamers are the ones that are crazy enough to change the world. I think we are honestly just scrapping, like we are still on the bottom of it. We'll have a lot to dig through, and I think we're just at the start of it. I'm seeing like, okay, nowadays the buzzword is this. I'm eager to see what is the next one. I'm sure there's going to be a next one. I don't know if it will be, now we are already in multi-cloud. I wonder if the next one will be Meta Clouds to avoid, let's say, the clouds not from Google, not from Meta, but Meta into the point of that you'll be totally cloud agnostic and you don't need to worry. So I think all these processes, another thing will be automated infrastructure, which is something I've already seen some POCs, but like telling to, I don't know, cloud provider, write text, I don't know, I need some infrastructure to run a service for 200,000 people, and that will right away spun up, I don't know, 3 virtual machines with X replica sets and whatnot. I think we are just scrapping like the beginning, and that'll be like a bright future. And I think if you look back 5 years ago, we'll never believe, like, or 10 years ago, oh, our laptops or our machines, we have like a Pentium 2, whatever. If you look back, like, oh, I'll never believe we have like this a laptop or a computer in our pockets or a computer in our wrists. And even this one, it's already has more computing power than many of the machines that we have. So I'm pretty sure like we are going to continue to strive. So there is, I think, no humanoid or autonomous driving, fingers crossed, that they'll take us out. So I think we're just beginning.
Great to know. Micah, and for you, what would you say are the next steps in order to unlock all this power? If you are still on the scratching the surface, what would you say?
Like it's a superpower? I think, I mean, as an industry, I think we'll always be trying to solve a new challenge. I don't think we'll ever have arrived at, a stasis where we can relax on our laurels. The target is constantly moving. So, there's always going to be new technologies, new ways to solve, problems that we'll have to utilize. I would also say that technology is cyclical. We sort of solve similar problems with new tools and new stakes throughout history. And so I think there's always, new toys that are invented. But we're, at the end of the day, still trying to write ones and zeros to a disk somewhere. And so, yeah, I think, I'm excited with the new tools and toys we get to play with and new ways to launch new products. But I think the ecosystem will continue evolving.
And for you, André, should we be frightened or excited about what's coming?
I would say I'm a tech optimist, so I would say super excited about what's coming. I also believe, as both of you, that we are scratching the surface. We are at the beginning. I want to really believe that we are in the Nokia 3310 moment, and we are still playing Snake. We are still going to see a lot of evolution and a lot of tools, a lot of new things to play around. And now we have 2 new kids on the block, so A and I. So we'll see an exponential growth of those tools to play with. So I think the future is bright, and let's be optimistic about it.
Till now, this conversation was closed on the panel, but right now I would like to ask if there's any questions in the room.
In terms of DevOps, in the beginning, when I first heard the word, it was supposed to be kind of a fusion between development and operations. And is it still like that? Because at my team, we have at least 3 of us do both things. And what I see that in terms of software development, doing also a part of the operations and also messing up with the infrastructure makes you understand much better the tools you have in terms of infrastructure and design architecture in a different way. So what I don't understand is what do you define in terms of having a DevOps, like a person that only does operations, DevOps only doing, isn't that a bit artificial? Yeah.
If you want to point it to someone or wants to answer, go for it.
You're feeling it. I have the mic, so I will go. I think, we mentioned earlier in the conversation, DevOps is not a person.
Not a person.
It's, a methodology, right? Or it's a culture of learning. And, I think we discussed earlier, Being able to break down silos is critical, especially to start within an engineering organization. When I started writing software a while back, you had the sysadmin, you had the application developer, and some organizations had QA, and you're just constantly chucking the thing you did over to the next person, and that's where a lot of mistakes happen. That's where a lot of inefficiencies creep up. That's where miscommunication happens. And to your point, there's much more value if you're able to understand a system holistically. You're designing, as you mentioned, like more comprehensive architecture, more well thought out, because you're also considering the uses, of a system. You're not just thinking about, my only goal is to spin a data store and let's have certain specs, and I don't care who uses it. But now you're thinking about it from the perspective of, okay, I know users are going to sign up. I know they're going to try to make a payment. I know it has to work. I know that I can partition my data accordingly because I understand use cases in mind.
I just wanted to make sure, because in the last years, it's back to call a sysadmin DevOps,
So, and here I totally agree with you. I don't know, maybe the DevOps in my point of view started 10 years ago, and I'll say it was the weird kid on the block. You had the development team, you had the DevOps, and you don't even touch it with a stick. And I think it's ever changing, like Carlos was saying in his talk. For example, Jenkins was one of the tools, but they start aggregating a lot of things. And if you have the development team not together, or not understanding the DevOps part and the DevOps part not understanding the developments, you'll never really get a good productive, let's say, pipelines. So I think it's ever changing to the point where DevOps started being the weird kid on the block. It starts coming closer, and now it's morphing into the team, more it's not an individual contributor, or let's say a piece that is separated. No, it's more involving, and I'll not be surprised if I'll say, and you're also saying that the system admin is already a DevOps, and I'll say in no time, and as he was mentioning as well, it's almost like a culture. I think there is no front-end developer that doesn't do DevOps anymore. And I don't want to say that they're an endangered species, but I'll not be surprised if in around another 10 years you won't hear about DevOps anymore. They'll all shaped or morphed into another thing now.
Full stack.
Full stack. Which I think it's like the man that plays all the instruments might be the one-man show, Elton John, and whatnot.
Yes, one more question over there.
Yeah, so thanks first of all for a very interesting point. When you talk about DevOps as being the culture and being more holistic, breaking the silos, then we need to understand the full monoliths, which becomes impossible, and we start breaking the monoliths into microservices. We start talking about pizza teams so that you can understand and have a whole view. Do you see this as the only way to go? Do you see it as alternative ways to go? Can you explore a little bit on that topic?
There are always different ways to go, but that seems to be, yes, the de facto path. So you start individualizing your teams in separate units of development, and also separating your use cases and your business cases, and then you have to orchestrate them. So that's the normal way to go. But then it depends on how your business grows. It might worth it to kind of start a new business again, and then you start again with a mono repo, and then you go to market, and then you did not have to create another microservice and orchestrate all of that together with your whole entire ecosystem that you already have. So that will depend on how you want to put the business, I'll say.
Yeah, I can add on to that. Depends on the goals of your business. So you can, I've seen different organizations that are, pizza team around a business function. I've seen organizations that are, organizing for capability. So for example, at one of my last companies I was at, we had a challenge where we had literally 30 cross-functional teams. And so you had iOS, Android, back-end engineer, and then you had a designer that would like float around. The challenge we had there was that the code bases were so complex that you couldn't have a single engineering manager that was supposed to be like the technical mentor for engineers who had to deal with very narrow problem spaces. And you also had a challenge where you're trying to uphold standards and best practices for a platform. So if you have 30 teams and you have, like 5 iOS engineers on each, how do you say, this is how I want the architecture to be, this is how I want modules to be structured, and then have those enforced effectively at scale? It's very challenging. So I wouldn't, it just really depends on your use case and the problems that you're encountering. I wouldn't say that, every team, every organization must end up as, a set of microservices, and you have one team that manages, one or a couple of microservices. I think it's a common pattern that you see. Maybe it solves the problem, maybe it doesn't. It just really depends on the situation.
Any further questions? We do have here. We do.
So, hi everyone. Thank you for everyone for the amazing discussion about DevOps. The question I had is an open-ended. So we're talking about all this infrastructure that we need to create, and there's a lot of people that we need to put into work to do all these things. So we are only talking about employees, but I want to understand, how do you balance internal teams with external consultants or contractors to build all this internal infrastructure that you need for your business?
Go for it, and I'll complement.
All right. So specifically around like how do you integrate contractors or folks from outside the organization into your engineering team?
My question is, how do you choose which challenge you want to tackle with contractors and which challenge you want to tackle with internal employees?
That's a good one. Depends on your goals. Yeah, as an organization. There's a couple considerations to keep in mind. If you're talking about, we want to, stand up this new cluster in a new data center to benefit our business continuity strategy. That might be fun work for engineers to do. It might be worthwhile experience for your on-staff folks to gain. It would be a waste if you sort of hired out that work, because then you wouldn't retain any of that knowledge within the organization. There's also different strategies where you can intermix. So you can say, I'm hiring consultants that are very skilled in a very specific area that I need to bring in-house, that I want my organization to have. And so, say I have 4 teams, I'm going to split, 2 consultants on each team so they can help elevate the group knowledge. And over time, you want to elevate the effectiveness of your team that are on staff, ultimately. You always have to be concerned around knowledge leaving the organization. So if you're on, if you've moved cloud providers and it was a 100% consultant team and, the contract ended and they all left overnight, how do you maintain the continuity of that system? Who do you have in-house? Was it just documentation? And a little bit of a side quest, but documentation goes out of date literally immediately. Like by the time you push, the next weekly release or what have you, that documentation is out of date. So I think, retaining as much human knowledge within an organization is going to be very critical to consider.
I mean, we do consultancy, so I can tell just two quick examples, because you gave me the normal use cases. But for instance, one you have a product, you have a roadmap, and you're pushing for the roadmap, but you have a bunch of clients, they are using your product, and they want to tailor-make the product for themselves. But that's not part of your product roadmap. So keep your internal team focused on the product roadmap and have contractors to take care of those tailor-made enhancements for your product. Second use case. Let's say you have a poor delivery infrastructure. It's taking you a lot of time to deploy. So have an external team enhancing your transforming your delivery infrastructure, and then go onboarding your product team, and then they had a poor delivery infrastructure before, and now they have a better infrastructure, and your contractor just leave you with better than you were before, and they did not interfere with feature delivery.
Sure, and here my point of view, I'll say if you need to balance it out, by default and from like personal experience, I'll say you should maintain the majority of it as a direct contractor, as a direct employee, to keep and retain the knowledge. Use it specifically, for example, if you lack the knowledge, you need to go into the market and you need some expertise that you don't have. Eventually another one will be to bring you knowledge and assessments to the team, where it's like, well, we are really using it, we really think we are good at it, but then we need to really bring someone to assess it from the outside, but well, at least someone with proper credentials and that you believe that already has experience. But on the long run, I don't think it's a good practice, and I think we've seen with multiple companies, Mercedes, Airbus, that if you go with a contractor at scale and on a long run, something will go wrong, because contractors are basically two kinds of business flows. One of them, they bring knowledge, or they bring you manpower per hour. And their goal is not to actually deliver something fast, is to deliver something eventually. So also to take care of it and think about it before just hiring just because for the sake of, oh, I need people here. Because sometimes you are desperate and they deliver people that might not be what you need, but at the time it seemed like a good idea. So always have a bit of consideration, and I'm an apologist of keeping the majority and try to automate if it's like supporting functions, or try to use the best out of your resources. Not like putting, I don't know, contact center, oh, contact center is not important, customer experience, and then you see like companies that have amazing customer experience, the majority are in-house, and they might use some for some lack of like manpower, but they try to automate now with automatic AVRs, automatic chatbots and whatnot to ensure that it's the minimum amount of resources and they don't use it that much.
Yes, I want to add something. Just because it's something just touched my heart, because we actually work with Mercedes-Benz, and I can just give you quick stats actually on something that we've done called Cloud Native Services within Mercedes. So they build products within the organization, and they actually have to deploy, they have to run them, and they will run it in a way completely inefficient. We were just brought in to bring efficiency to the entire organization that were deploying products, and on resource utilization alone, we've saved them around less 5 to 7 times what they were spending before. But and then you might say, well, that's an easy challenge because they obviously are over provisioning everything because they can, and obviously that's a given. But navigating the organization is really hard, and then there are much more nuances to that. But it's not always bad. But yeah, but that's also true that the incentive is to obviously get returns from your client, but especially on those, you really have to bring the return on investment, otherwise it's not too good for you.
No, but just to, indeed, but here you brought actually the one that I'm apologist. You brought the knowledge, you brought the assessment, not the man hours. So
exactly.
I'm just not apologist on putting like supporting functions everywhere, but in this case you brought knowledge, because there was always like a big shift of, oh, we don't have enough people, let's maybe put contractors more, and then they go back and forth, and then they get used to just, oh, let's hire more contractors because it's cheaper. But then they're seeing like on the short run, like, oh, we are affording like a lot of money, our capex and opex is better. But in this case, they hire you, of course, they play for quality, and you came and optimized the thing, which you brought this knowledge. I'm not against it. Just I'll say you need to bring like good people and ensure that they can bring value to your business.
So can I say, just to summarize something? For me, it's either I have a spike of routine work, and then I want to buy routine work, and there is no loss of knowledge. They just do some, or I want to buy knowledge.
But then why not
And I
talk
bring a guy that knows much better than any of my guys, and we save a lot of time just by learning the shortcuts. Yeah.
But then a question that I make it to you, if it's repetitive work, why don't you automate it?
Of course.
So
But
it's like-
sometimes you have just a spike, something that you have to put a lot of work.
Sure.
Thank you so much
Yes.
for all the inputs. I'm sure that you could stay like till midnight just discussing these interesting topics.
And we can.
We
still
saw,
can.
That is
yeah,
good.
we saw the good, the bad, and the ugly about DevOps. We saw as well the real impact in the world. I just want to thank you, João Mourão, André Gonçalves, and Micah Koga for coming here, for sharing their thoughts. As well, I want to thank you all for finding the store and coming here. It was really valuable to have you here. And also the sponsors, and also the teams from xgeeks, and also from the AWS user group leaders. So thank you all. Pizza, it's already over there. I don't want them to get cold. So let's go. And one round of applause for everyone.
Thank you all.